And now we have here with us once again Amy Kelly of Crohn's Colitis Ireland. So thanks for coming on, Amy.
Thank you so much for having me. Lovely to see you both.
You're here mainly to talk about an upcoming conference, which is in, is it the, what date is it, the 19th, is it?
Sunday, the 19th of May. Yes.
Yeah, so we can talk about that a little later, but we can maybe just do a little basic rundown again for people who might not be familiar with what you do. It's IBD stands for
Inflammatory bowel disease.
Yeah, not to be confused with irritable bowel syndrome, which
correct.
They are sometimes confused, are they? Yeah.
Unfortunately, they are, yes, and they do have overlapping symptoms, but the difference is with inflammatory bowel disease, it's in the name, there is inflammation present in the gut. With irritable bowel syndrome, there is no inflammation present, so they're treated extremely differently, and they're managed differently as well.
Right. So Crohn's and colitis are the two main types, isn't it? And maybe you could just tell us the differences between the two.
Absolutely. So I always kind of look at it like an umbrella. So our umbrella kind of term is inflammatory bowel disease. And underneath that, you have variations of that depending on the type of inflammation, the presence of where it is in the digestive tract. So we have Crohn's disease, and that is any part of the digestive tract. So that could be from your mouth all the way through to your anus. You could have it in one part, you could have it in multiple parts. So I have Crohn's disease myself. So I have my inflammation in my small intestine, and I get things like mouth ulcers in my mouth. So I have presence of inflammation in my mouth sometimes as well. So it can kind of have that patchiness, I suppose, with Crohn's disease. Ulcerative colitis is more localized to just the colon. So it is just in one part of the digestive tract. So it's just usually in your colon. And that's the difference really. The symptoms are very much the same that people can experience. There are other types as well, like microscopic colitis. The only reason it gets its name is because it's only detectable by a microscope. So that's where it gets its name, but it's still very much as part of the inflammatory bowel disease family, for want of a better word.
And does it escape detection for a long time in some cases? Yeah.
It can be a very difficult diagnose, or I suppose disease to diagnose. It's said that it typically takes about 18 months for people to get diagnosed, so quite a long time. And unfortunately, that's because it can appear sometimes like IBS. It can appear like other conditions. When I myself was diagnosed, it was between Crohn's disease or my appendix, would you believe? And that does happen a lot. So if you can imagine your digestive tract, it obviously overlaps with a lot of different organs. So there's a lot of investigation that has to happen for people to get their diagnosis. And that's definitely something we want to see improved. But it typically takes 18 months. It's usually diagnosed with a colonoscopy. To go into the intestine to see the presence of inflammation, maybe take biopsies and send them away to get confirmation of the diagnosis. Other ways are things like, your inflammatory marker in your bloods, and it's something called a fecal calprotectin, which is a stool sample test, which would be sent away to test for presence of inflammation as well. So there's a few tests that can be done as part of your diagnostics to rule out and see what it might be.
Right, and it can be active or in remission, can't it? At different times.
Exactly. So it's a chronic condition. It's a lifelong condition. There is no cure for IBD. So for Crohn's or colitis, you will have it for your entire life, but you will have times of flare. So that's when there is presence of inflammation, and it's usually when you see a heightened rise in variating of symptoms. And then you will also have times of remission. So that's times when your medication is doing its job and it has brought that down the inflammation, and you can live a perfectly well life and do everything you want to do in life when you're at that time. But you will have times when it kind of, I suppose, rears its head and doesn't. So and it's usually at the time when nobody wants it to rear its head, unfortunately, that it tends to. But it really depends. There's a variation of medication you can be put on when living with IBD. So it's about working with your IBD team to see what best suits you to bring down the inflammation and keep it down. And then hopefully you should be in remission for quite some time.
Are there any statistics for sufferers of Crohn's or colitis?
Yeah, in regard, we actually done a patient survey there recently, and I suppose just to kind of highlight a couple of different things I have here in front of me. Only about 45% of people are working full time. So having a chronic condition like IBD can really affect, working life. And the way it can affect could be, the commute to work. Maybe they have to go into the office. Loads of things like that. Fatigue can be a big issue for people. So they might reduce their working hours to facilitate that, or might maybe ask to be able to work from home. So remote working is really important for people for IBD to be able to participate fully in the working world. 69% say that IBD affects their working life. So that's just to really show, and how we really do need to take it seriously for people. We have 62% have said that IBD is a financial burden on their life because we're not recognised as a long-term illness. So we don't have access to the long-term illness card for living with IBD. And that's something that really we as Crohn's Colitis Ireland are advocating for and hoping to change. So people have to pay everything out of pocket themselves, which is, I can imagine, living with a chronic condition is a huge financial burden for people. And then about 49% of people, on their worst day living with IBD, obviously a lot of people might have toilet trips. So like diarrhea is a prominent symptom that people will experience at times of flare. And 49% of people said that they would go to the toilet 10 plus times in one day, which is absolutely extraordinary. And I think, it's not a symptom that everybody has, but a lot of people with IBD would have diarrhea as a symptom. It really needs to be taken more seriously of the impact it takes on a person, because if you can imagine, I'm sure, you're in two studios today. So you would have got up this morning, left home and commuted into the office this morning, and probably thought nothing about where the toilets were on the way to work this morning. Whereas with people with IBD, every journey they take, they will map out where the nearest toilet to them is so that they know where it is in times of urgency and emergency. So that's something that, just to really show the realities of it for people, that it's something that we laugh about, any talk around poo or anything like that. I think we're all a bit shy to talk about it, but it's a real, I suppose, debilitating condition for people, and it has a real impact on people's life to participate in life. When people with IBD, I have it, probably looking at me, you might not think it, but I, actually was up last night in the middle of the night in a lot of pain and really, really unwell. But you wouldn't really think that now this morning looking at me. And that's not at all, yeah. So the thing about it is that it's an invisible illness, and it's just having an appreciation for that, because a lot of people are really battling a battle internally, and it's very, very difficult for someone to see that externally. So just understanding it's important to somebody if they have been diagnosed with IBD, because symptoms like, obviously the physical symptoms are quite debilitating, but even things like fatigue and brain fog are so difficult to deal with. And all week I was kind of fine. On Wednesday I woke up and I literally felt like a bus had hit me. So I really had to kind of manage that day a little bit differently because my energy levels just weren't there. And I'm starting, as I've got diagnosed in 2019. So I'm definitely, as the years go on, starting to kind of, take my steps back to put my health first at times. But it's really, really difficult because, as I said earlier, sometimes when you're trying to, or when it rears its head, it's usually at the busiest time in your life, or it's at when something nice is happening and all that kind of stuff. So it's quite challenging. So yeah, they're just some statistics, but we have loads of others as well, if there was a particular area that you wanted me to talk about specifically.
So there's no cure, but can lifestyle choices play a part in helping with the condition?
Yeah. So like, just a lot of us, I think, when we're diagnosed with a chronic condition, self-blame or say, what did I do wrong? Or perhaps friends and family might have the best of intentions, but they might say, well, what about eating this, or what about this, that and the other? And the truth is there's so much unknown about IBD and why people get diagnosed with it. But it looks like there's things like genetics, environmental factors, and things like that absolutely play a part with any chronic condition. I always say it's nothing you did wrong as a person, because, you know, we could go through so many things. And, you know, I particularly, when I look at my diet, it was really, really healthy. Like even in college, the girls used to laugh at me and say I'd be like making my homemade soup and everything. So I really would have thought that I would have had a very healthy diet. So, you know, we can kind of self-blame, but it definitely can play a part, of course, you know, and the importance of exercise, and even just gentle exercise or even muscle building exercises are really, really great actually, for people with IBD. And then diet naturally plays a role because of where our digestive system is and our food goes through that. So what I always kind of say is, with regards to diet, you're going to probably have to change at a different time. So, for example, you know, during times of flare, you cannot tolerate certain types of foods. So, obviously, you can imagine our intestine, and if it's all inflamed, it's obviously not going to be at its top shape to be able to do what it's supposed to do. So it's not going to be able to absorb the nutrients and all the good stuff of what it's supposed to do because it's inflamed and it's not able to work the way it should do. So then we have to change our diet quite slightly. So some people might go on like a beige diet, which means just keeping the food nice and plain, reducing the fiber, light meals, maybe having a few smaller meals throughout the day rather than just your 3 meals. You know, water is quite important, those kind of things. But it's really individual because, you know, what I could eat, somebody else with IBD might not be able to eat, and vice versa. So it's about working with a dietitian, or working with somebody to try and figure out what your trigger foods might be, and then kind of getting them under control and obviously staying away from them as much as possible. Usually when people are in remission, you can live really, really well, and you can eat the foods that you want to eat as well. When you're in a flare, sometimes some people become lactose intolerant, so dairy just can't tolerate it at all, but then that can go when you're in remission. So it's really individual, as I say. So like, and it's really challenging, I suppose, to navigate that, because all we ever want as people who've been diagnosed with something is just give me the book and I'll follow the book and I'll do everything I'm told. But unfortunately, with Crohn's and colitis, it's just not that simple. It's not straightforward. It's totally individual, and that's why it's really important to work with your gastro and your IBD nurse. And we're obviously there as a charity to support you and help you along the journey as well.
There's more talk than ever now about ultra processed food, and that possibly may be a factor, is it, sometimes in inflaming the condition?
Yeah, well, look, I think like so much food now is ultra processed, and you know, with every food I think that we're consuming, there's some level of a chemical or a stabilizer or an emulsifier or something kind of present in it. So it's quite difficult. You know, even our fruits and veg really have something on them, you know, that kind of thing. So it's definitely something. It's just there's no real evidence massively in the area of it yet, so it's quite an unknown area of it. But I suppose it's really kind of looking like genetics and environmental issues are the main areas as to why some people might be born with it, and then there's just a trigger that might trigger it in us, I suppose. But yeah, so it's unfortunately it's still quite unknown. But yeah, obviously as a general population, it's quite important for us to reduce our ultra processed foods anyway. Absolutely.
Right. So Crohn's and Colitis Ireland, when were you set up, and what's the basic work you do?
Yeah, so we're celebrating our 40th anniversary this year, which is fantastic and a brilliant milestone, and a testament, I suppose, to all of the volunteers and the staff over the years for the services they provided, which is a great achievement. So we provide support, obviously, for people living with IBD, and there's a few ways we do that. So we have our helpline that people can call, and that's not just for the person living with IBD, it's for the family or friends that might have questions or might want to, you know, to educate themselves to best support their loved one living with IBD. They can, of course, get in touch with us as well. We have patient days around the country, and we work with collaborators in regards to research and helping kind of, I suppose, bring the IBD patient voice into research in Ireland. We do awareness campaigns, and we do other events as well. So everything we can do, and advocacy as well. So like I had said earlier about, you know, advocating for better supports nationally for people living with IBD. There are things like, you know, better and easier ways to get diagnosis, access to a multidisciplinary team. For example, we don't have enough dietitians or psychologists in IBD clinics around the country. So that's something that really needs to be addressed. And then the long-term illness scheme as well. You know, we need to have financial supports there that people living with this chronic condition can get access to, because it's a huge burden and a huge stress in people's life. And if we could take that off it, I know that would make a huge difference to people living well with this condition. So they're just some of the areas, but we're always like, we're there basically, as an extra hand just for somebody who's diagnosed with this condition, because there's an awful lot to navigate through, really a lot of information. And, our website had a wide range of information there on it, on a wide range of topics. But as I say, the main thing, I suppose, is that we're just a listening ear, and we're there to provide advice and support where needed.
So the conference is happening on Sunday week, is it?
Yeah, so we're having a conference on Sunday, the 19th of May, which is also World IBD Day. So on that's our global day, I suppose, to create awareness about Crohn's and colitis. So we're doing that, and it's our kind of our also a mark of our 40th anniversary. So we have some talks there. We're doing a podcast recording. We have a podcast as well called Gutcast, and we're doing a live recording there as well, talking to some patients, medical professionals. Then we are also having a talk around diet and how we can manage our diet with people living with IBD. And then we also have a talk around kind of with a psychologist as well. And that's around areas like self-compassion, guilt, managing our relationships, all of those kind of things that we probably don't give ourselves enough credit to, that we need to be managing and looking after our mind as well, and the importance of that. And then we're having a lovely meal as well, following on from our talks, again, as I say, to kind of really mark the milestone of our 40th anniversary. So it'll be a really lovely day. I'm really looking forward to it. And that's in Cork, and it's in the Kingsley Hotel.
And you're expecting people from abroad to come? Are people from other organisations abroad coming?
No, it'll be just ourselves.
Oh, just yourselves, yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. We will also have a stand where we have signed up to the Sunflower Hidden Disabilities Programme. So we have a no wait card, and the sunflower symbol is there, but that will also be, they're actually going to be there on the day as well, just to kind of create awareness around that too. And
I see some specific topics, gut feelings and love your gut.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly. So the gut feelings is all about, looking after our mental health, and then the love of your gut is all about diet and IBD and what we can do to look after look after our IBD, and the different times, as I mentioned, at flare and remission and stuff like that.
And there'll be speakers specialising in specific areas.
Exactly. We have a dietitian and psychologist, we have an IBD nurse, and then we also have people who've lived with IBD giving their personal stories as well, which is just as important to hear that lived experience too.
Right. And so anyone who wants to go, they can go through the website, presumably, yeah?
Yeah,
they can
absolutely.
Register.
Absolutely. Yeah, so it's free. We're a membership charity, so it's free for members to attend. You can sign up to become a member and then register that way, or else you can just pay. It's a donation of €20 just to go towards the meal on the day and stuff like that. So if you are a non-member, you absolutely can still attend, and that'll kind of prompt just up on our website. So it's www.crohnscolitis.ie, and it's under events, and you'll see it there.
And people can attend remotely. Anyone who can't go in person can.
Yeah, we also have a live stream happening as well. So you can attend in person, but we also have a live stream, and you can also register for that on our website as well. We'll also be kind of sending out the live stream on Facebook Live as well. And the live stream will be from 2 until 4 p.m.
Right. So we're coming to the end. So is there anything else you'd like to add, Amy, before we wind up?
No, not at all. I think there was loads covered from our side there as well. I'd encourage anyone to come along to the day if they want to learn more about IBD. Everybody is welcome, and we ran these patient days previously. We had one in Dublin in March, and we've done 4 last year around the country. And we always ask for feedback afterwards, and the feedback has always been really incredible. And people get so much out of it because you hear from the experts, which is really beneficial. But you're in a room full of people who just totally get it. Everybody in the room has, is living with IBD, or they're supporting a family member who's living with IBD. So you're surrounded by people who get it, and you get an opportunity to interact and chat with each other, which is really, really great.
Okay, thank you very much, Amy.
Lovely. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Amy.
Bye.
Nice to speak to you again.
And you too. Thank you so much. Take care.